Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. We're continuing our run of Chris Claremont's The Uncanny X-Men 208. I started from the very beginning with Classic X-Men number 1, which covers Giant Size X-Men number 1, and every issue has been in order. And here we are. I have a playlist. Feel free to check that out if you would so like. I've got the X-Men, I've got the New Mutants, I've got X Factor now. Um, there's also a X Universe, which is everything. So everything's done in reading order, and also have an apology to make. I said in 207 was Phoenix's last issue, and I was mistaken. It's actually next issue, 209, that will be her last issue with the Uncanny X-Men. I hadn't read these issues in a long time, and then when I was rereading 208, I'm like, hey, Phoenix, still there. So I told you in 207 it was Phoenix's last issue. Um, it was not. So my apologies. We're nearing the end of the John Romita Jr. era as well. And it's a shame because John Romita Jr. actually started really drawing really well. And so we've got the Lord's Cardinal versus the X-Men. And you see this pink creature in the background. That is Nimrod. So Nimrod is going to start to make his move. Claremont has been having a subplot running with Nimrod, and that is about to go here. So, all right, here we go. His pants are red here, and this instead of orange. So a little bit of a coloring mistake here. So, all right, here we go. So Wolverine has returned to the Marlock tunnels to explain to the X-Men what happened, and here we start with Kitty here. The title of our story, Retribution, starring the Uncanny X-Men, which I love that Claremont does. And Kitty yells, Wolverine, how could you? What have you done? And of course, we get our credits. Chris Claremont is our writer, John Romita Jr., and Dan Green, pencils and inks. Tom Rzadkowski, one of the greatest letterers of all time, and Anna Senti and Jim Shooter concluding the editorial here. All right, I love the dry brush being applied here. Very nice. I love it. So, as I mentioned, John Romita Jr. is doing really well toward the end of his run here. So he does get a second run, but it's a very short run here. So we've got the X-Men down in the Morlocks tunnels, and I love these shadows here. And so Kitty's basically letting him have it here. He basically took lethal action against Phoenix to stop her from slaying the Black Queen. And Wolverine says, had to be done, Pumpkin. She's like, don't call me that. Only friends get to do that. And he says he has no choice. And Nightcrawler says, are you sure you didn't have a choice? And Lethal Force. And he says, if I had another option, Nightcrawler, don't you figure I would have used it? And Rachel says, there had to be a way. There's always a way. He says, not this time. She was too powerful, too obsessed, and I was too weak. Ray was going to kill the Black Queen. I couldn't let that happen. Now, I'm going to keep reading, and then I'm going to pause to speak about the difference between the X-Men then versus what's happening and happened during the Krakoa era. So you will allow me to indulge here. And so Kitty says, you're crazy. Celine's a vampire, as evil a creature as they come. Are you saying her rotten life is worth more than an X-Man's? And Wolverine says, "We're not talking a fair fight between them, not even close." Ray went into the Hellfire Club with one goal: to execute any of the inner circle she found there. You approve, Shadowcat? Is that what the X-Men have become? Murderers? And so Wolverine continues, "Like it or not, girl, we're heroes. We're supposed to stand up for something. If we break the rules or throw them away, why should anybody follow them?" Now, this is what the X-Men were. But during the Krakoa era, killing was okay. These, you know, I know I'm old. I was born in the 70s. Gen X here. I understand that we evolve stories, we move forward, we do this, we do that, but these aren't heroes. At least the X-Men's aren't. Not the way they were portrayed during the Krakoa era. I did not recognize who those X-Men were. I quit X-Men during that time. I just was like, nope, 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 nope. Little by little, more and more of the X-Men have been destroyed by Marvel itself, I feel. This is Chris Claremont's era of X-Men was fantastic. Even the era after Chris Claremont was pretty good with Andy Kubert, Joe Mad. There were some good stories in there, but little by little, it's been taken away. And as I mentioned before, I know characters have to evolve, but the X-Men turning into mass murderers the way they were in the Krakoa era, the way they disregarded other people, it just wasn't anything that I recognized from them. So I quit it, and I haven't gone back because um, I just it's still Krakoa era light in the X-Men, and until they can resolve this, Marvel particularly, where heroes are heroic and do heroic things, instead of being anti-heroes or whatever, it's gonna suffer, but eventually Gen Xers will die, and who knows if the new kids really are still buying comic books. So we'll see. Anyway, Rachel answers, and says, "And if we do we answer to you, huh? Who appointed you keeper of my conscience, fella?" And then Storm says, "Enough, both of you. What is done is done." And Storm says, "I understand your decision, Logan. That does not mean I sanction it. However, this is not the time to argue the point. Rachel is still alive. She is hurt, lost. She must be found before she causes any further harm. Callisto, I would appreciate the Morlock's assistance." And of course, we get the whole thing of, remember that Storm is now also leader of the Morlocks. And Chris Claremont reminds us and says, "You're chief of the tribe, Storm, as well as the X-Men. You wish, we obey. Ask me, though, it's a wasted effort." Wolverine knows his business, and if he hit true, if he hit true, struck deep, smart money bets your girl's history. So, nevertheless, Storm says, "We shall try." So, meanwhile, we're in Central Park here, and we see a mugger grab this lady here, and he's bring her through, and he takes her purse, and then from behind we see Selene. This is and she gathers him and uses her power to drain the life of the mugger, and you can see him kind of going through, so she's getting her youthful appearance. And so the lady's like, "Thanks for saving me." And of course, Celine's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna eat you too." So the girl screams. So Celine is a horrible character, which makes these kinds of villains. She's perfect for being a villain here. She's just so evil here. So she gathered the Lord's Cardinal here. They're all sitting there, and Sebastian Shaw says, "Why have you summoned us?" And she says, "Because earlier this evening we were attacked by the Phoenix." And so you can see her pouring her water, I would think. "She meant to kill me," and of course, Shaw whispers, "Pity she did not succeed." And she says Wolverine prevented it, and Shaw says, "How does that concern us? There's considerable personal animosity between you and the girl. Obviously, her intent was to settle the feud." And Celine says, "She came here with one purpose, Sebastian, to slay the Lord's Cardinal and destroy our inner circle." And of course, Shaw says, "Assassination is not the X-Men's way." And she says, "Are you calling me a liar, Shaw?" And I love this. "And if I am?" And so Tessa screams at both of them. And she says, "Wolverine's intervention, the fact that he inflicted a near mortal wound on the putative comrades, indicate that the Phoenix may have broken with her own teammates and become a rogue operative." And she says, "Heed your leman, Shaw, as ever." Tessa speaks with wisdom. And of course, Tessa says, "I merely observe, my lady, and I relate what I have seen." And so Shaw says, "Phoenix represents a threat we dare not ignore. She must be dealt with." And, or, sorry, it's pointing at him, but that is actually Celine that says that. My apologies, but it is pointing at Shaw here instead of pointing at Celine. And so Leland says, "Unlike you, Celine, I have felt Wolverine's claws. I do not wish to do so again. If he cut her, as you say, then she's most likely dead." And Celine is just having none of it. She calls him a fool and a coward. And Tessa says, "The queen is right. We need to get her." So, and then this is, of course, Von Frederick or whatever. He basically serves Celine. And so Shaw says, "Hunting the X-Men will probably bring us into direct conflict with the X-Men." And Celine says, "Are you afraid, Shaw? If so, perhaps the time has come for a queen to rule." And Shaw says, "You desire my place, madam, then take it, if you can. As it happens, however, I agree with you about the girl. Her insults cannot be pardoned, nor the danger she represents ignored. But I want her alive, Celine, a tool we can perhaps reshape to our purposes. Is that understood? Alive." And of course, she smiles and says, "Of course, Sebastian, I understand perfectly." And so we're going to pick up now with Nimrod here. He is scanning the area, uplinking with a satellite dish, and he is looking for the Phoenix here. And so we get that she's an Omega class, very powerful. And so he picks up Phoenix and registers as the Omega class, and he's going to go and attack. But this kid is the son of this is Tomas Rodriguez, the son of Jaime, who asks him to check on his homework, and he's like, "Hey, it's past your bedtime." And so he asks him again about his homework, and he says, "I'd like to, Tomas, but I have business downtown. Tell you what, if I can, I'll give it a look in the morning." And she's like, "Thanks." And so he leaves, and he's like, "Strange, it is not my function to teach, yet I enjoy helping the youth." So he's the kind of the AI is going human. That's a big thing that they do with AIs, but I don't think so. I don't think that's possible. So Nimrod's gonna fly off in hopes of eliminating Rachel. So now we are here in Central Park here, and what is happening is Rachel is picking up the stray thoughts, and she's basically being flooded with the thoughts of millions of people near her. And so you can see, shut up, get out of my mind. Just feeling everything. So she has survived Wolverine's attack here. And so we get a bit of a recap from the previous issue here. of everything that happened, and I love this part, Snake, and breaking in there. So Wolverine's whole point was he did not want the X-Men to turn into assassins. Oh, buddy. Wait till you get to the Krakoa era, bud. All right. Get off my high horse. So Rachel needs medical assistance fast, and she thinks that if she slips even for a moment, she will die. And so she begins to wander through the park, and of course, she is going to find the two victims from Celine. She's furious, and so she's going to link with Wolverine. Um, and basically, she's gonna show him what his mercy has wrought and what the cost of those two. And she attacks Wolverine here. What price your precious morality now, little man? So, and she says that was only a fraction of what those poor people felt. I hope it hurts. I hope you never forget. And so she drops him in front of a train. Kitty jumps and gets him, and she says, I wonder if he would survive. But of course, she grabs him. This actually looks really cool here as she fades underneath here, catching him. And then she comes up, the train stops, the conductor sees them, and then she asks Nightcrawler to come, and she's like, get us out of here. So he teleports both of them to Central Park here. Caliban's happy to see her. He says, Caliban's happy to see Caliban's true friend Kitty Pryde again. And so Callisto's like, hey, Wolverine has his limits, Storm. He can't keep pushing this hard, and you can't afford to lose him. So he's still recovering from the battle with Deathstrike, and then that battle with Phoenix. So he says, oh, I can't take anymore. I've had worse. So they're like, well, Callista's like, we know now Red's still breathing, and unfortunately hates our guts. And Rogue's like, well, at least Wolverine. And so they need to basically catch her. So we basically get Rogue and Storm talking about they've been seeing Rachel sort of devolve, and they should have seen something and done something, but they didn't. So it's just seems that it's a little too late. So she says, Caliban, you need to locate Phoenix, and he says, okay, but she's nearby, as are others that are hunting her. So Caliban lets her know there are other mutants out there, which of course it's the Hellfire Club here. And so Celine is with Von Rome, I think, and he says, your carelessness, Frederick, nearly caused my death, but I offer you this opportunity to atone for your transgression. And he turns into like this beast here, and Claremont says, less than human but deadlier than a beast. He says, find her blood scent, and he's like, as my goddess commands. And Leland's like, the devil with the phoenix, brat, Shaw. And Shaw says, it is Celine who frightens me. Tessa, analyze and evaluate what we have seen here. And she says, most probably a specific voluntary transmutation talent akin to lycanthropy activated through some psychic interference with Celine's own power. And of course, he says, Mistress, I have her close by and sorely wounded. And she smiles and says, lead us to her then. And so off he goes. And the Hellfire Club goes after her. And she goes, I think Von Rome will serve me well. And Shaw is like, as you, I trust, serve me. And she continues to smile. And so Nimrod is still searching here. And he sees the Morlocks, the Hellfire Club, and the X-Men. So he's like, all right. And so we got Rachel here, and the Rook gets her. And Rogue stops him from getting her, and Rachel's like, the X-Men are here, but do I want them to rescue me? And so the Rook cuts her, which of course catches. She's able to absorb him, and she's absorbs his powers and his personality. You can see here on the glove, and he's like, "Arr!" And so now he's gonna go and try to stop Rogue with a Cybolt, but she says here that the attack on Wolverine left her to drain, and she's too weak to stop Rogue. And so Selene uses her power to also control inanimate objects to hold Rogue. And here comes Kitty. You see that they do a fastball special with Kitty, and so he gets her out. And so Rogue's still recovering here. So Rachel is gone, and Storm says the X-Men have no quarrel this night with you, Shaw. Leave Phoenix to us. Let's both groups go in their separate ways in peace. And he's like, nope. And he tells Shaw to get Colossus. He affects mass and just basically creates such mass that Colossus goes under, and he's gonna suffocate, and Rogue goes to stop him, and she ends up, remember her, even though they're drawn here, her gloves were ripped, and now she ends up absorbing his power and has to let him go or he will rip out his arm. So they're like, should I release the boy? And Shaw's like, yield such a considerable tactical advantage? Absolutely not. Colossus will either suffocate underground or one of his teammates must go to his rescue. And of course, there goes Rogue. And so Storm psychically is talking with them, but normally they need Phoenix to do this. So I don't know how they're being linked, or if there's some kind of radio that is using here. So Storm says Nightcrawler, and he answers, "Can you both travel?" He says, "Yes." "Come at once, Callisto. Also Rogue." And she's like, "I'm closing on Colossus." And Storm says, "Leave him." And she's like, "No." And Storm says, we need to execute an immediate Earthshaker against the Lord's Cardinal. And of course, Rogue says, "Storm, he'll die." And Storm says, "Not if you are quick. Neutralize Leland, and Peter will no longer have to be affected by his ultramass power. Only then can he be saved." And Shaw says, "You have lost, Storm. Surrender and we will spare the boy." "And if I do," says Storm, "at the very least, you will live. Consider the alternative." And so there's Rachel, and she's like, "Hellfire goons can sense the thoughts that got the drop of Storm, but if I warn her, even telepathically, Selene will hear and she'll find me again. If I do nothing, Storm could die. Good, great, serve her right, let them all suffer." And then she's like, "Stop it. They're the X-Men. I should stand by them." And she's like, "Why? I haven't been any real use in the past. They'll get out of this fix. They always have. Besides, I'm too badly hurt. I'd probably only make matters worse. It's my fault they're in such a mess. If I leave, I won't really be abandoning them. I'll be saving them by taking away the reason for the fight." And so Storm says, "I refuse your general offer, Shaw. We will not yield, ourselves or Rachel." And Shaw's like, "Your funeral." And so this guy's like, "That's our cue, gun her." And all of a sudden, mutants, as we are going to have Nimrod appear. And he is basically lets them know your physical nature automatically brands you as felons. The unsanctioned use of those mutant abilities is a capital crime punishable by death. And so next issue, Salvation. Good stuff. This is a really well done issue. Love the dry brush being applied here. So nice. I really enjoyed this. So all right, Uncanny X-Men 208 by Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr. with Dan Green doing the inks. A little bit more dry brush right there. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.